Welcome to the second episode of Imperial Interlude, discussing all things from a galaxy far, far away. I'm your host, Tim, and with me is Rav. Hello, Rav.
Hi, Tim.
How was your first impression overall on the new episode?
Initially, because I watched it when it dropped. So in the UK, it dropped at 8 a.m. So I watched it when it first dropped. I was a little underwhelmed, but I think that's coming possibly off the high of what happened at the end of, especially at the end of the first episode. With the reveal.
I'm pretty sure there were some expectations set.
Yeah.
And I said in the last episode, no, he's not going to show up in the next episode. They're not going to do that. And
but then I watched it again and I enjoyed it. I did still think it was a bit of a filler episode, I think it was laying the groundwork for some stuff that's coming in episode 3 and beyond.
Also, it's not it doesn't have a final conclusion. It only has a relatively open end like the first had. And I'm starting to like this. This isn't the Star Trek usually had when the episode is concluded, everybody has a happy end and everybody goes their way. So this is a bit of a difference.
Yeah, a bit like the way Babylon 5 used to do it.
Yeah.
With its elongated storytelling over a season, not just your condensed 45 minutes.
Yeah, you can see there's an overarching element that tries to bind everything together. I like the very cheesy beginning of it.
With the ambush and things.
Yeah. So once again, for the final time, spoiler alert, we're not holding back. If you don't want to have any spoilers, stop now. So this episode literally starts where the first one ends, in the middle of the desert, with our Mandalorian cruising along the desert right into a classic, this is a very tight rope ambush, knocking him off his speeder bike.
Yeah, and it was interesting that actually, I'm guessing he didn't see it, but because it was very, very quick and the speed he was moving and stuff. But then when they went into the fighting, which was quite good, where it was all close quarters, he tried to use his gun, and that was dropped off. But the other one that I didn't pick up on originally was the little alien.
The Zuru Jabba thing?
Yes. If you look at him, and then for people who have seen it, remember the alien that Rey meets? That there's a scavenger alien
on this little riding beast.
It's either that one or later on when she's in the town paying for it. It's the same alien.
Oh.
It's exactly the same costume.
Well, that's a coincidence. We also have me bugging personally continuation error in that very first fight. Did you notice?
No.
When he's falling off his bike and he's getting into the fist fight with a guy with a bald head. When he comes around the corner, he's wearing some weird eyeglass construction. Then the camera cuts. And it cuts back, and suddenly he has no headgear on whatsoever.
I can forgive that.
It's about 3 seconds. You could argue he has got it nicked off his head by a blow to the face or something. But if it was normal glasses, I would say, yeah, you can lose them. But these are strapped to his head like they are there to stay forever.
Indeed, but it was interesting how he used when the little alien fires the harpoon.
Yeah.
And then he ducks and they're going to hit the other two straight in the face.
Though the alien doesn't fire the harpoon.
Is it not?
No. He aims with the rifle. Mando nicks the rifle with the harpoon and then ducks.
It's the other way, isn't it? Yes, and then ducks, because it's a harpoon gun that they're using against him, isn't it?
No, it's not a harpoon. I don't think thieves would try harpooning anything. And then him having to barter for the little one's life by giving the rocket pack. And at that point, I was, he's not getting out alive.
No. No, definitely not. Especially when you know for a fact he controls it off his gauntlet.
Yeah,
It was quite funny though, that especially the look he gives the babe, the child, after the thunk, and the camera cuts before the black bit where he just looks down at him and just sort of shrugs. It's like,
did you notice the baby starts to purr like a kitten while he's having him in the air flying? It's like, oh, I like what you're doing. So this is not your 100% lawful good Yoda. This is a child with all intents and purposes.
Exactly. It was a. I think it was a good way of opening. I think it sort of laid a little bit of continuation from the previous story.
Yeah, and then
And
him having walking back to town with all his valuables to a very spaghetti western music tune, I think was a very nice touch.
Very 1960s guy with his saddle and nothing else.
And then also he's shown to get back into the cantina, which we had seen in the episodes before. And if you look closely, there's this same satellite dishy thing buried in the ground as in the original cantina. So I'm going to say that is the cantina.
I think it was in the first season. It was said that it was not said so much, but heavily hinted that that was the original cantina. You just didn't have the human bartender. You had the droid bartender.
Yeah, and
the whole intents and purposes, the layout and everything was
the
exactly
IG-88 had things that make up the back. I think it's safe to say that this is the cantina. Maybe has switched ownership one or two times even. And did you notice the bartender droid in the background when he was talking to the large ant in this one piece? That looked very much similar to the droid that was in the service of Jabba in the cellar where all the other droids were held.
You mean the one that was torturing? That there was like the droid that was almost like the
not the white skinny dude, the one that did the talking behind the desk.
Yes, that's the one I'm thinking of. Yes,
that's very much the same model, I think. At least the elongated alien-like head.
I'm wondering if that's the alien that Pelimotto is playing Sabak with. Dr. Mandible is the name that seems to be there. I wonder if that's a Vulpine, which was a race from the extended universe, which were very tech savvy. They were very much into their making weapons and stuff and everything like that. So I wonder if that's them having a little bit nod, not mentioning the race, but they are an insect species called the Vulpine. I'm wondering if that's a nod to them.
I think it's safe to say that Mandalorian so far has been very filled with hints and nods to anything that's closely related to official canon as it can get.
Yeah. But it's nice to see that they're fleshing it out more and more, I think, with the alien races and and the different representation, because we all remember the original trilogy. Yes, they did have the aliens, but a vast majority of the conversation and stuff was all with humans.
Yeah, and no starfighter pilot was actually shown to be a different race apart from Num.
Yeah.
And I know that there were plans originally to have alien species in cockpits, but for some reason they didn't go with it. But speaking of fleshing out, the next scene is when he's back in the hangar and there's a large piece of the dragon grilled on a speeder bike, or no, at a what they called
barbecue, really.
An engine of a pod racer.
Yes, they were using a pod race engine to barbecue the crate dragon meat.
And again, a situation where I can very much emphasize with the baby, where it's looking at the boiling meat, drooling.
I think baby was hungry somehow.
I think that's the subtitle of the show, The Mandalorian, featuring the hungry baby.
But then leading into from that scene, from the last scene, is where Motto says that she's possibly got some, shall we say, someone that knows of another conclave hidden off somewhere, and that's where the title.
2 more Mandalorians.
Yeah, which is where the title of the episode comes from, The Passenger.
Yeah. Though it should be plural because the passenger is a female frog humanoid and she's carrying her offspring in a container. Little caviars.
Indeed. But and then of course Motto is technically tricks, I would say, or bends the truth. I think is probably the best way of describing it, to get the Mando to take the job with the passenger, because she says, I'll vouch for this person with my life, and then later on, about 5-10 minutes later, she goes, I've only just met her, but I know people.
Yeah, so she's not so much tricking him as to maybe overemphasize some parts of truth. And the biggest thing is, it would be only a short trip to the next sector, but since her offspring can't handle transwarp or whatever you would call lightspeed travel,
hyperspeed,
they are forced to go sublight, which he doesn't really like the Mandalorian.
No, because it's quite interesting that the way that he describes it. It says it's more dangerous to travel via sublight, which is something that that's, I'm assuming, is from this time period, but it's never actually mentioned anywhere else really in Star Wars that it is dangerous to travel at hyperdrive.
Well, it's
non-hyperdrive speeds.
Well, it's if you start thinking, it really is a logical conclusion, because you leave the planet, you punch in your coordinates, and you go to hyperdrive, and you're off everybody's radar, unless you got an Imperial Star detector or something like that to get people drop out of hyperdrive.
Yeah.
But going sublight through the system, you're on people's radar, literally. So every warlord, raider, or run-of-the-mill, no-good deeds people can hunch onto you.
I'm guessing as well as it's this episode sort of answered the question of what that water planet is possibly is, because I think a lot of people thought, oh, it's Mon Cala, or
looked a bit cold.
Or what was the other one? There's another one as well. I can't remember what it is. It's one of the planets from the Old Republic. Karn. I think it's Karran. Karran or Karn. It's one of the planets in the game. I probably got butchered the name.
It's probably Karen or something.
That's something like that. But it was, so it's not Mon Cala, and I think a lot of people as well as thought that's where he was heading to. Because in the trailer you see a lot of Mon Cala and Quarren sort of at the docks and stuff.
Yeah, but those are a sentient space race, so they could be everywhere.
But I think a lot of the fans thought, oh, we're going to Mon Cala, we're going to see Mon Cala. Well, we've sort of seen Mon Cala anyways.
It may be possible for us to get there at some point, but this is the same with Boba Fett. We will see him again, but I wouldn't count on the first 2 episodes on it.
No, I've got some thoughts on that, which we'll probably cover at the end, because I think it leads into episode 3 and beyond.
Yeah,
what I think might be going on. So he takes the job and sort of travels off, and then, do you want to explain what happens next then?
Well, they go to sleep, not before he hasn't seen the baby taking one of the eggs out of this container and swallowing it whole. So it's literally caviar at this time for Baby Yoda. He tells him not to do that anymore and puts him back into his crib, and they go and take a nap. And we get rudely awakened by this very annoying sound we already heard on the original Star Wars movie when the TIE fighter comes into close vicinity. Approximation alert. Going... And then suddenly he's quite wide awake because 2 X-Wings are flanking him.
Indeed. Now, what's interesting about one of those X-Wings pilots, it's one of the X-Wing pilots from the episode The Prisoner from season 1.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Did you not notice?
No.
It was Dave Filoni again, playing the same character, because the character's actually got a name now. It's called Trapper Wolf. And it's Dave Filoni's one.
Trapper Wolf. That sounds like some character from Mesh 47.7. Trapper John.
Trapper John McIntyre from MASH. But no, it's the name Dave Filoni's character used because when Dave used to go to Celebration a lot, when he did Celebration, he would always have a wolf T-shirt on,
Mhm.
and that was part of his, and the cowboy hat, as we know, Dave Filoni. Whereas especially when he was speaking and stuff, so that's part of like his look when he was doing it, and I think that's where they've picked the name from.
Wow.
So yes, it's so the pilot that doesn't speak is Dave Filoni. The other pilot is that Carson Trivia, which was the guy that the Asian guy,
the older one.
the older one. Now he's a comedian, and he's done a bunch of stuff, but he's also a member of the 501st. He's an honorary member of the 501st. I'm just going to bring it up here because it's got the name of the actor, and yeah, it's Paul Sung Hung Lee. He's a Korean Canadian actor, and he was in a show called Kim's Convenience, which was a like a comedy show about a convenience store. Convenience store. He's also had a hobby of making Star Wars and Ghostbusters cosplay, and if you look at some of the stuff he's done, he's got a cosplay of himself as a mud trooper from Solo, and he's a member of the 501st because that's where some of the pictures are. So that was the other gentleman that was playing the one that was doing all the talking.
Yeah, and the shooting later on, but
we'll get to that later as well. Yeah. So they have a conversation with them, if I remember correctly, with the Mando, and then it's to do with him not having an IFF on.
Yeah, he's getting hell because he's not transponding, and he goes back on saying, "Yeah, I'm pre-imperial surplus. I'm not required." And the very gentle reply is, "Well, now you need to because this sector is under control by the Rebel Alliance." Which it's kind of weird. So it's still the Rebel Alliance at that point, and not.
No, he says New Republic.
It does.
Yeah, they say New Republic.
Oh, I must get checking my ears then. I could have sworn he said Rebel Alliance, but
no, they definitely say the New Republic. We're now under the sector is now under control of the New Republic. So it looks like they're expanding out the control that the New Republic seem to be having within sort of the law, shall we say, within the Mando, and that which possibly assumes that they may turn up later in the season to possibly with stuff with Moff Gideon when word gets out about him, but who can tell? As the story seems to be centralizing around Din Djarin and the child.
Yeah, could very much.
But yeah, so they have that conversation as you sort of mentioned with with Din Djarin about the IFF and stuff, and then the other pilot asks his captain to go to a different channel, and there's a bit of conversation, and as that conversation is happening, the Mando is sort of looking around, and you get the classic locking X-Files, which I thought was great very much to see. It was like,
oh, we're in shit.
Yeah, it was like you look at it and go, oh dear.
This and then is going to end badly.
Yes, very badly. And then the communication opens again, and then asks if the Razor Crest was in the vicinity of that correctional transport, which was the one from the same episode, The Prisoner. So it looks like they were able to identify the ship.
At least on some level.
On some level. So yeah. So instead of, shall we say, replying
or turning his ship over,
yes, he decides to run for it, which I thought was really cool. It was a really cool sort of flight sequence, and it's the sequence that we see in the trailer.
Yeah, it's and the question that one of the pilots goes, what is he trying to do? He's going to break up in this atmosphere, and he didn't.
No, he didn't break up, but I thought it was interesting the way he was cut his engines and stuff and just sort of free fall down.
Yeah.
Through the clouds and stuff. It was very, very reminiscent of fighter pilot, like that sort of fighter pilot thing that I think Star Wars is based all of their ship combat on anyway, which is what George
I also got a bit of a Firefly feeling on that.
Yes.
Very reckless maneuvering, no shits given about the passengers.
Definitely. It was very, very much as well, speaking of Firefly, it was very much from like Serenity. Yeah. When they're being chased by the Reavers. and I think they cut the engines, don't they, in the movie, and they sort of do that huge, big sort of free fall thing. So yeah, and he ends up going in the atmosphere of an ice planet, so it's not Ilum either, which a lot of people were wondering, what the ice planet was going to be, because I think the speculation around
It's not Hoth.
Ahsoka and other ones was, that we're going to end up on Ilum, or maybe that's where some Jedi are, because Ilum, as we know, is a planet where kyber crystals are and stuff.
Yeah, but we had our crystal now in episode 1 with the Cry Dragon,
yes.
so we don't
Great
need
Dragon
another one.
You never know with Dave and Jon Favreau sort of doing their bit. What are they, planning? What little Easter eggs are they putting in there?
We need more lightsaber material for some weird reason.
We're laying that foundation for the Kenobi series. That's what it is.
Trade secrets. Yeah, so he actually manages to get them off his trails by some very weird flying and landing backwards underneath a large piece of ice. And then he drops through the floor, literally, and the Razor Crest is badly damaged.
It is, which is where the footage that we see of them sort of coming out with the child out of the ship in the trailer is on the icy thing. The other thing that we should really mention is, before they encounter the X-wings, the frog lady, as seems to be everybody's calling her, doesn't speak any other languages apart from our own.
Yeah, she seems to be able to understand the normal basic that he's speaking. I'm just guessing he's speaking basic because nothing else is said. But he can't communicate with her on any way, shape, or form. So
after they sort of crash land, he basically tells her there's no way we're going to get to that planet. It's over, pretty much, and all that. We'll get off the planet. We'll drop you off somewhere. And she doesn't take lightly to this, because he goes to sleep with.
Yeah, he said something along the lines like, "We take a rest now, and tomorrow I will try to fix up our ship, and then we see what will happen."
Yeah, he also goes and gets some rations and stuff, and blankets and stuff, and I think he accosts the child again after to find the child. He goes and looks for the child in the
directly
crib
after
where he
the
is.
Crash, yes,
and the child's not there, and then
child is eating again.
Yeah, eating another bit of caviar again. So then he says no, locks it up again, gets some rations and stuff, and then goes back to the cockpit with, I think, the child, and then basically tells her that we're going to go rest, and then I'm going to try and fix the ship, and then we'll drop you off somewhere. Yeah, and then all of a sudden it sort of cuts, and then as he's sleeping, it suddenly...
Well, they start sleeping while they're all three in the lower part of the ship eating. Then he's making himself comfortable. The baby is snuggling up. The frog lady is snuggling with a can of caviar and putting the blanket over it. And then the camera fades, only to have our hero awaken to the sound of an assassin droid.
Yes. So the droid that he killed in...
The pilot one.
In the prison episodes, a lot of what seems to be gone on was based around that 6th episode.
It's a strong anchor in this episode, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the bits with the X-wings hunting down the Razor Crest, and then it's called a Protocol Droid 0, but I think it's the model of droid's a Protocol Droid, probably with some reprogramming to be the pilot stroke assassin that it was. Telling him to wake up, and of course Mandalorian draws his blaster, and it's basically the frog lady's managed to bypass all of the security protocols and everything of the droid and just use its vocabulary to communicate with him, and she basically guilts him. I think would probably be the best way of describing it.
I think guilt him would be a bit harsh, because he did give her his word, and since she is, as she says, on her last cycle of reproduction, and these are the last springs she will ever produce, it's a very vital mission for her, and he's simply now noticing, okay, this isn't just transporting one from A to B, but a somewhat more heavy thing.
Yeah, it's more the fact is getting him to keep his word, I think. So it's not necessarily guilt, but the obligation.
She
Keep the
reminds
honor.
him of his word as a Mandalorian.
Yeah. So he sort of, it's not so much a grumble, but he grabs a toolkit and stuff and starts.
Well, he starts working. He's not happy about it, but he starts working, trying to patch up the ship. And then he goes outside, patching up the ship, where he gets a visit from our little caviar-loving friend, who is trying to get his attention. Because there are tracks in the snow leading away from the Silver Crest, because Frog Lady, for some weird reason, which I can really not explain, started wandering off in this deep freeze world to find some sort of hot spring. This is the only point in the story where I thought, why? How did she know there are some hot springs around, or is she going on a risk, or how? What sentient being would go outside in that freezing cold?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's more the fact is that she didn't think he was going to help, and she left with the eggs to find somewhere where she could get off the planet. She came across the hot spring. That would be my logical thing, I think, from it, because it's not really explained.
Yeah, but as you said, there's no explanation given, and so basically she's wandering off, she's finding a hot pond, and is taking a bath, and she's literally pouring her little ones into this unknown water, which is, as a parent, totally unresponsible. But hey, who am I to talk to a frog lady?
Yeah, we don't have frog spawns,
Nope. We only have one or two usually. We don't, and she doesn't even seem to notice that Baby Yoda has eaten 2 or 3 of her offspring,
or 4 or 5, depending on how many. Yeah. But so the child sort of gets his attention, and then that's when he uses the visor, which I thought was really cool, where he's showing off the tracking again, which I think he used in first season. I think he used a similar sort of thing.
And then he wanders around, following the imprints in the snow and the thermal leftovers and whatever, to find her bathing.
Yeah, with her children, and then he puts the child down, and is having a conversation. I think he's speaking to her when the child, sort of the camera cuts to the child wandering up slightly, and what looks like it comes across in the cave, comes across what looks like an egg initially.
Yeah, something that could be eggs or shrooms or anything similar like that. It's very easy to say this is the part where shit hits the fan and everything went down.
Yes, everything goes sideways. So I would say if you haven't watched the episode and you're still listening, why? Spoilers.
Also, if you haven't seen it and you don't care for spoilers and you will watch this later, please be aware this is a very arachnophobic forcing. So there are going to be many legs.
There are indeed. So the child wanders up, and it opens. It's one of the eggs opens.
Yeah, he tears one open and finds a little spider in it and starts munching on it. Again, this baby has a stomach of steel. Obviously, no taste buds.
And then the camera pulls back more as we see there's lots of eggs, and
they start to bubble and burst, and then, as is tradition in any spider horror film, there are suddenly ample supply of our 8-legged friends.
A large number of little ones, medium-sized ones as well. Yeah. And I think the child runs back and gets the attention.
Yeah, at this point, the Mandalorian already has collected most of the eggs, and they start fighting off spiders. Did you notice Frog Lady used a trick to get her clothes?
No, I just noticed she moved off camera and then back around.
Yes, she used her tongue.
Yes,
Like in the food
yes,
sequence where she snacked the food from the plate with her tongue. There suddenly the tongue goes across the screen in the background, and she gets her clothes that way,
yes.
which I found hilarious at that moment.
And then of course they're doing the mad dash back through the caves that they came from.
Yeah, but not before Mama
She-
Spider crashes through the roof, being
yes,
approximately the size of the Silver Crest.
indeed. So she comes out through the tunnel first, doesn't she?
Yeah,
And roars at them, and then you get the crazy chase, and then of course the Mando using all his tools, so shooting them, setting them on fire, so he gets to
blowing
use
pieces up.
his flamethrower and blowing things as well as they rush back to the ship, fighting them in the ship as well, which I thought was like, oh no, ooh, as they crawl basically into the ship.
Yeah, when they were running towards the ship, my first thought was the ship is wide open. There's no safety in the ship.
Mm,
But then again, there's the cockpit, and they get in the cockpit, making a lot of baby spiders dead in the process,
indeed.
and lock the doors. But then the mama spider comes back again.
It does, as he tries to take off as well, so he manages to get the engines blasting off, and as they take off, I thought, yep, that's it, they're going to get away. And then of course Mother turns up and hits the top and
It
starts
is
basically
pissed.
it's not happy, and basically starts putting a huge great big mandible of sorts through the cockpit window.
Yeah, at this point, we might point out that these spiders are again not to the very early days of Star Wars, because they are based on a design by Ralph McQuarrie from
Indeed.
the very, very early stages. So if
Mhm.
anybody of you have a art book by Ralph McQuarrie, you may search for them. And I think earlier, before we started recording, you said something like these spiders were in Star Wars Rebels also.
Yes, they were in Rebels. There's right, first season of Rebels, second season of Rebels. It's the third season of Rebels when they end up on the planets, and Kanan Jarrus is going to see the Bantu,
Mhm.
who was voiced by Tom Baker. And there's these spiders on the planet. They're very, very similar in design. So that's where I think they took the Rebels
I
design
need to
from.
rewatch Rebels and Clone Wars, the series, I think, to get some references that are currently just passing me by.
So it's the third season. I think it's because it's the season after Kanan gets blinded, and Kanan gets blinded on Malachor, which is the Sith, where the Sith is, and that's where they encounter Maul. That's where Maul has been hiding for how many ever years. So that's how they introduced Maul into Rebels and sort of close off his story eventually with Twin Sons, which is something I do recommend for people to watch. Definitely, I've rewatched all of Rebels now, so I've actually caught up. I've watched all the Clone Wars, all the Rebels, and all the Resistance.
Yeah, there's certainly a thing going with the Star Wars series and Disney Plus currently.
Definitely Disney Plus. So yeah, so those are from. It seems to be that they're the similar design
Yeah.
to ones. So it's all, and as you said, it all links back to what Ralph McQuarrie and his original artwork.
Though I have to say the spider beasts in the Mandalorian right now look like a one-to-one port. There's not
Mhm.
much leeway in artistic liberty taken. They really look like this picture of him.
Mhm. So as the mother's attacking and they're getting ready either to shoot or be killed, shots ring out from outside into the mother, and then the shots continue and continue and continue. So the Mandalorian opens the door to the cockpit and sort of creeps out, and then he basically comes across the two X-wings and their pilots with their guns drawn, busy shooting all the spiders off the Razor
Yeah.
Quest.
Again, when they started shooting, the audio was a very giving cue. If you ever listen to Star Wars, I think this is a very unique laser firing sound they used for the rifles the two pilots are using. And for some weird reason, the Silver Crest was void of any spiders all of a sudden, as if Mama has called them out or something.
Yeah, I think there's also as well, there was still some crawling around, but I think after the mother died, because she was the first one to sort of die very quickly, I'm wondering if they scattered.
Could be.
So, I mean, it's not nothing really major to the story, I think, from a telling point of view. It's one of those many mystical TV things of things are there at one
it's
time and then
it's a
they've
plot
disappeared.
it's a
Why?
plot point. If you think too much about it, you're going to
Exactly.
ruin the experience. So just go with it. It's space western
Mhm.
adjacent to some magic fairyland of good and evil. So don't think too much of it. It's not
Definitely.
Star Trek. It doesn't want to be logical. It wants to be enjoyed.
Yeah, it wants to be entertaining and
Yeah.
in its own lane. So there's a bit of a conversation between the Mando and the pilots. He asks, "Is he going to be arrested?" And they say, "We should arrest you, but however," so the Berg, Mayfield, and Xian, which were the three, which was the Deveronian, the human, and the Twi'lek that he locked onto the ship, were wanted. So so they're not going to arrest him. And Mando said, "I'll waiver I'll also waiver the bounty if you help me." And the pilots turned around and said, you know, pretty much no. We're not going to help you, but we're not going to arrest you. And tells him to fix the pilots tells him to fix his transponder so they don't vaporize him the next time and then depart. So the Mando
Also,
ends.
a very important thing I think which
Mhm.
should be mentioned is that they main emphasis the pilot gives for not arresting Mando is basically that the security cameras on the prison ship have shown that he was out and about trying to save that poor pilot's life of that prison ship
Indeed,
that got murdered by
mhm.
his comrades.
Indeed, that he actually tried to save a New Republic officer and stuff,
Yeah,
and then there's that they're not going to arrest him. They're going to let him go in these trying times, as they call them.
yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's foreshadowing information that they may or may not have.
Could very much be, and
You know?
we should always have in a back of mind that this is a post Death Star 2 universe.
Mhm.
This is pretty much in turmoil, and every warlord that has some influence is trying to gather up as much power as he can, while the
Mhm.
New Republic is trying to re-establish power in what was the Galactic Republic.
Yeah, trying to reclaim order, shall
Yeah,
we say, out of the chaos. And then the X-wings depart. So Djarin repairs the cockpit, makes it good enough so they can basically survive in there to get to the to the planet.
yeah. Then
Tells the frog lady, we're going to be in here for a while, so you better use the fresh air, otherwise,
yeah.
that's it.
If you need to take a leak, take it now. Otherwise,
Pretty
we have
much.
to be in here with me.
And then
Does he give a time? I think 2 days or something.
I think he does. I've
It
watched it.
wasn't a non-trivial amount of
Yeah,
time to be without a toilet.
indeed. So and then they take off, and as the Razor Crest, which looks really badly damaged, takes off, it cuts to the child eating another one of the eggs, which I
Wherever
thought
he
was
did store that, and just let me tell you, I think I know what the visual department was trying to get across when they showed the Silver Crest limping along the
Mhm,
sky, but I think they overdone it a bit, a
mhm.
tiny bit. That heap of junk that is crumbling through the space is simply no. Can't work. Next time he tries to re-enter atmosphere anywhere, he's going to get blown to smithereens.
Definitely.
That thing is busted far beyond any repairability by the looks of it. But we have seen ships come back from worse.
Indeed. But it was a short episode as well compared to last week's. It was only 40 minutes.
Well,
But
short is a relative term.
I suppose,
The first 8 episodes were also around that mark. So I
yeah.
think in the way of length and quality, we have been very much spoiled by the first
Mhm.
episode for the season.
Well, Jordan Favreau did do an interview and said that the episode length will vary, that there is going to be varying episode lengths in season 2 more than what we had in, say,
Mhm.
season 1. Um, but also, I mean, so that was sort of the episode in a nutshell. But I think it's laying a lot of, and I think, to be honest, we could probably say this episode is probably going to be, if we say the next episode, chapter 11, as it's called, or episode 3, is the next part of this. So say it was one episode, but split over two parts.
Yeah.
So this whole little arc is probably going to be in running time about an hour, like, well, sorry, not an hour, about a movie length. So say in 80 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think is probably the best way of describing it. So this was like the first half, and then the next part is going to be the next half of the story of him delivering the woman to the frog lady to the planet,
to her husband, and a
to her husband.
potential place to get her eggs fertilized, as is stated at the beginning of the episode.
But what I think as well, and this was something I alluded to at the beginning, was I think the trailer that went out, the one and only trailer that we got, is only covering, I think, the first 4 episodes.
Could be.
I think it's only going to cover the first 4. I don't think we're going to, or the first 5, say. I don't think we're going to see. We have seen anything about the back 3 episodes of this season. I think because the scene when he's on the water planet and you see Sasha Banks in the crowd who disappears. The scene before that, you see the back of the frog lady with the canister on her back with another person of her race.
Mm-hmm.
So that's them 2 heading to the docks. Yeah.
Well, that then could be a thing we see next week.
That's what I'm thinking. Is that there was the scenes from the trailer, if you look, or I think from the stuff with the fight in the thing, and the stuff with the where we get in the comedy scene in the trailer that we also, where the baby locked himself in his crate, that was from episode 1. The stuff with the X-wings and stuff that we saw in the trailer, and the crashing of the Razor Crest, the sliding along the ice, that was from episode 2. I think the stuff where we see Sasha Banks and the frog lady and the water planet, that's from episode 3. And I think the stuff with Navarro, I could be wrong, maybe episode 4 and 5. I don't think we've seen anything on the back end of this season, and I think the back end of the season, because there's been some discussion. Jon Favreau's done some interviews and stuff, and he said this is going to be a bit like Empire Strikes Back, whether that's in tone or in story or how it ends. I think the back end of the season is when Boba's going to turn up. I think Boba's going to be the one that takes the child to Moff Gideon.
Could be. And let's be honest, if they really manage to get a Empire Strikes Back feeling from the end of this from this season, I would be highly impressed. This isn't what Empire Strikes Back did was surprise everybody, because they did something nobody else did before. There was the revelation of Luke's father. There was the basically Empire winning that episode, and since then, I think you start to expect something like that in the Star Wars universe. You don't get surprised that much if the evil side is suddenly having an advantage or something.
I think that's what's going to happen, though. I think Moff Gideon, by the end of the season, is going to have the child. I think that's where they're going to end it on.
Or some weird standoff between Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Well, we need to wait and see.
We need to wait, but I think we can't. There's speculation going on, and we with the Boba Fett and the Cobb Vanth room. Well, the Tamori Morrison. Let's not say Boba Fett, even though I think I think we can all say it is Fett. It's not going to be a clone. It's Fett.
No,
we know it's going to be Fett.
Since he's been featured as Boba Fett in the credits of IMDb, I'm saying this is official.
Yeah, even though anybody can edit those. It's a bit like Wikipedia.
Nobody would do that now, would they?
Well, but definitely with the cast, with the Timothy Olyphant casting of Cobb Vanth, and I think that means then the Rosario Dawson possible casting of Ahsoka is probably true. But I think she'll only be in one episode, and it won't. And I think, like I said, that'll probably be at the back end of the season as well, because if I think they're trying to hold off a lot of the surprises. So the stuff with Tamuri Morrison, yes, it was leaked saying, oh, he was seen on set, but it wasn't said where he was seen and in what context.
Yeah. Also, people could be on set just simply as an advisor or something.
Exactly. Or as a visit. You know, George Lucas visited the set 3 or 4 times. So, you know, I mean,
as long as you don't see people in costume, everything is open for debate.
Exactly. So, but no, I think it was a quiet episode, but I think that's in comparison to episode 9. You know, I think they needed that. But the other interesting thing is, did you notice the director?
No.
It's Peyton Reed directed it. Now, Peyton Reed wrote and directed Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Ah.
So that's why we've got bugs in this episode,
probably. Or maybe they had the episode written down and, you know, who can direct this? It's full of bugs.
Yes.
Oh, I know a guy.
We know a guy. So yes, Peyton Reed directed this episode, and I know that one of the other episodes coming up is a Robert Rodriguez episode. He's down as the director, as well as
that name rings a bell, but I can't put it into context.
From Dusk Till Dawn, El Mariachi, Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Yes. Yeah, those ones.
So another spaghetti western on the way.
Sort of another spaghetti western, another gentleman, I would say, who knows action.
Yeah. But saying action, I think even though this chapter 10, episode 2 has started somehow quiet, slowly. It was tense. I really was on the edge of my seat when the chasing on these spiders were, because it's a new series. We don't know who will survive, where things will go, and yeah, it went a different way I would have expected.
Yeah, it was, and I like, you know, as well as anything where that's got bugs in them chasing people, you know, you have that primal sort of, even though we may not be afraid of spiders, still, you know, it is that sort of fight or flight.
I still wouldn't eat them.
Still wouldn't eat them, creepy crawly thing, isn't there? So, but you know, it was a quiet episode in terms of story beats, but in terms of visuals and action, it was quite heavily packed, and I think it was really good.
And it's an episode that's for the aged Star Wars fan, with some nice chasing action in the skies with X-wings and a weird fighter pilot, and shortly after that a chasing sequence with evil monsters. So yeah, I think that's one for the family.
Yeah, definitely one for the family.
So I think this is it, what we have to say about Season 2, Episode 2, Chapter 10 of The Mandalorian. I hope you out there have enjoyed our little show. I say thank you, Ralph, for being here and lending your voice with your omnipotent knowledge of all things Star Wars. And your very much great Google foo whilst talking.
My great Google foo, merely, yes. Wikipedia is your friend.
Yes. I will hear you again next week, and hopefully Disney keeps it up with this. So,
definitely.
Farewell, well met. Bye.